I love the names on this team. They have Sixto Sanchez, and they have my favorite name probably in baseball right now, Jazz Chisholm.
Showing emotion in baseball is terrible and should never be in the game.
It's weird how the dynamic works between sports.
But to win a championship, not only do you need great players on the court, but you need good chemistry, which takes time to develop.
Justin Fields is a all-time talent.
Corey Perry will give some veteran presence to the Canadians.
I feel like Luka will take that next step, and if he can get a three ball consistently around 35%, I feel like they could become a contender.
We can make jokes about you not being in the Super Bowl for 20-something years, but...
What's up, everyone? This is Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild and Lift the Mask, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our MLB Opinions of the Week. It is a heavy MLB Opinions of the Week, as we've previewed the Home Run Derby, we've done the All-Star Game predictions, and now we review the first round of the draft as we did the mock draft to start it all off. And what a wild draft it was, as I got 8 points in the mock draft, and the man to announce his points and the rules of the points, Austin.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different than the NHL or NBA or NFL. Kevin, you can't trade picks, and because of that, it makes it harder and easier. You don't get those extra points where a player can get 1 point because of a trade or the right team. So I've gotten players I predict to go 5 and they go 20, but I still get a point because they go to the right team, and that's all I needed. In this case, I can't do that. I have to be perfect on both fronts, and so do you. You did get 8 points. I ended up with 6 points. This one's also harder because money is an impact in it. So instead of the 1 point for right team and the 1 point for the right pick, it's just 2 points if you got them right, because that means you got them at the right pick, and that means you got them at the right team. Because we're only looking at the first round, so we don't look at afterwards. I don't even know. Like I know Tommy White went 40. I had him going to the Twins. I don't know if he went to the Twins. He could have possibly went to the Twins, but that wouldn't help my points because this is just a first round prediction. So yeah, Kevin, you can start it out.
Yes, so Travis Bazana goes to the Guardians. This was the pick I had, and he's the best player in this draft, and he's a great hitter, and that's what the Guardians need. So a little bit surprising because there is that money aspect, but I think now we can move on to the second pick.
Yeah, I disagree with him being the best player. He maybe has the best potential. I think that's why Travis Bazana was pretty consistent, number one. But I don't think he's not better than Charlie Condon. It's just, can Travis become a better player at some point? That's really a discussion. Number two, very surprising to me, Chase Burns. Very good pitcher, sure, but I didn't think he would go inside the top 4. And he ended up going at number 2 to the Reds. I definitely think this is a money thing, Kevin. You're going to have to pay him less than you're going to have to pay Charlie Condon. So, but the Reds are getting so good that I don't necessarily think that they should be doing it based on this. They could use another outfield pick, and Charlie Condon would be in the MLB within a year or two. So I don't know. I never get the money argument. I never get it, but we'll see.
Yeah, so they go pitcher, and I know he has a great fastball, but I did hear he gave up a lot of home runs, which in Comerica Park could be a problem given it is a hitter-friendly park.
Yes, but very hitter-friendly. Yeah. Very hitter-friendly.
So now we go to 3 and Charlie Condon, and I'll kind of let you talk about this one.
Yeah, what a steal. When was the last time we talked about the Rockies in a positive light, Kevin? I don't remember. I don't. I think the last time was probably All-Star Game MVP last year. I think that was probably the and that's not even the Rockies. That's Elias Diaz getting All-Star Game MVP. So the Rockies, I think, won the draft. I think that they finally got someone that I'm like, that guy's going to be really good. And I'm happy for them because it's been a while since I've been very confident about anyone on their team becoming like that.
Yes, and you talked about him coming up in a year or two, and this would be very helpful for the Rockies because they need players now, and it'd be exciting for them to have a great player like Condon. Now we can go to Nick Kurtz. to the A's. And it's a hitter, and I know Kurtz is a great hitter, but I'm surprised the A's didn't go with another player here because I've heard he doesn't really have a position defensively outside of first base.
Yeah, he will almost certainly be a DH, from what I understand. He can be first base, but he's not a great first baseman defensively. So I don't really like to pick. I would have went with JJ Weatherholt, who I had it going at number 1. They could still use a shortstop. They can use almost every position, but it's not a terrible pick. And once you got past Charlie Condon, there's no like home runs. I think I'll go straight into the next guy, Hagen Smith at number 5. I love Hagen Smith. Maybe it's because he went to Arkansas, or he just had a 2.04 ERA, Kevin, and was easily the best pitcher in baseball. It wasn't even close. And to have a lefty starter as good as him, I love the White Sox taking this guy. I know people are like, oh, well, they have good starters. You need more than just 1 or 2 guys that can be great starters. If it's on the table and you thought that Hagen Smith was the best guy available, there is nothing wrong with taking another pitcher. I understand, again, people are like, oh, but you already have 2 good starters. I disagree with that being what you need to be looking at. I think if you think that this guy is the best guy available, which I would agree at this point, besides Weatherholt, but you don't want to go shortstop. You want to go pitcher. I'm never going to be mad at that. Pitchers are like a lineman to me. It's very hard to have too many of them.
Yeah, well said. If you have a chance to get a great pitcher in the draft, I would do it because we've seen just the importance of starting pitching, or of just great pitching in general, and especially for a team like the White Sox. You can go out and pay a position player, and it wouldn't cost as much as paying a premier or trading for a premier pitcher, because we've seen the money that takes if a pitcher like that even hits the market and what a trade would cost. So getting him in the draft, and I've heard Hagen Smith can kind of come up quickly, which could be
he's another guy that was just an older guy, and he was so dominant in college that he could come in within a year, and I would not be shocked.
Mm-hmm. Now we go to the Royals going Jack Caglione.
I like the pick. I thought he would go earlier. And again, he's a 2-way player. If this works out, he's the best player in the draft. If he is a average starter, average DH, he's the best player in the draft. To get an average starter, let's say a 3.9 ERA guy, but also 30 homers, maybe let's say 28 homers for the average DH, that's the best player. It's one of the best players in baseball. Just because there's not many people who can do that. So he has the highest peak. But again, you're not going to take him with the Reds pick or even the Guardians pick because of the money aspect. I think that there's only about 5 players that have the potential in this draft to be the best player in this draft. Now, obviously, there could be a Nikola Jokic in the very later rounds, later picks. But if we're talking just off of what we know right now, there's only about 5 players, I think, could be the best player in this draft. And I think Caglione has the potential to be the best. And it could be a Shohei. Again, the peak is Shohei Ohtani at this point. Like that is what we could see now. Obviously, we can't anticipate that. That is a very, very lofty goal. But what I will say, and this is why I love the pick, he just has to be good at one of them. And you're good, right? If he's only good as a pitcher, and let's say he's a 3.5 starting or 3.5 ERA pitcher, you won. You're fine. You don't need him to also be a great hitter, or vice versa. He's hitting 35 homers a year, 28. Let's just say 28 homers a year. You're fine. You're fine. He can find a position in the field. He's athletic enough to find a position that's not pitcher. I love taking 2-way players because, again, you only got to hit on them once, but they have 2 chances, realistically. And so I think the Royals took one of the safest picks possible because, again, he could tear his UCL and not be able to pitch again and still be a great hitter. So I think that this is a great pick. I think this is the right pick. I love it.
Yeah, he does have that upside you talked about being a 2-way player, but also he could be a good hitter, or if that doesn't work out, he can do pitching and that could work out, or vice versa, as you mentioned. And now with the Cardinals, which is probably the shocking pick to me, not because it's bad, it's just I'm surprised JJ Weatherholt was here. He was in conversation to be the number 1 overall pick. So I thought even if he wasn't, other teams would jump on him. I had the White Sox jumping on him at 5, but instead he falls to the Cardinals at 7.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, I mean, we've already kind of talked about their shortstop situation, but I'm not. Again, you can't. Shortstop is a premier position, one that if you have a really good one, you're sitting pretty. I think that this is a great pick. Again, I think he was the best player available, and I don't know if you could ever fault a team if their logic is we're going to take the best player available, and the best player available is there. I'm not against it. And again, Nolan Gorman right now for the Cardinals has been their second baseman. He only has a 206 batting average, 93 OPS plus, and you don't need your shortstop to play shortstop. Mason Wynn is probably the best shortstop defensively they're going to get for a long time. But if they just need a hitter and need a better hitter, they could just plug JJ Weatherholt on the second base, and that's a seamless transition for a lot of players. Marcus Simeon's one that always comes to mind when I think of shortstops turn second baseman.
And depending on if they have a third baseman and what JJ Weatherholt's arm is like, he could even go to third if Nolan Arenado retires or when JJ Weatherholt. But they can definitely play positions. There are many shortstops that have moved to different positions. Marcus Simeon,
and if he's really athletic, Tatis is now a Gold Glove winning outfielder. So I mean, I say it's a premier position because shortstops can almost do anything. It's a shortstop that's worse is just a second baseman, and that's why I think the two premier positions in besides catcher, let's ignore catcher because catchers can really only be catchers or maybe first baseman. But I think center fielders, because a bad center fielder is just a right fielder, or a bad center fielder is just a left fielder. If you could have 3 center fielders, you would just have 3 center fielders, right? Because they usually have a very strong arm. They're usually really quick, and they're usually great defensively. So that's kind of how I feel about shortstop. Again, a bad shortstop is just a second baseman. So
Speaking of second baseman, the Angels go Christian Moore, and I know he had a great season in the College World Series and great game. I feel like this is a pick where the Angels can be like, he can play for us next season, where they kind of
very much so. This is very much that. I think I would have probably gone with one of the high school guys here if I was going on highest potential, but you're totally right. I think that they're like, we want a guy on our squad as soon as possible, and that's what this guy can bring.
Now, speaking of high school, once again, highlighting the upcoming pick, the Pirates go Connor Griffin at 9, the high school shortstop.
Yeah, the first pick that I got right, and I think they could use a guy like this. He's again very high potential, and he has great hit tool, and that may be enough. Again, you don't really need a shortstop can play so many different positions, so I love the pick.
Yeah, and it looks like Connor Griffin could move to center field, and that could be something we see. Now we go to 10 with the Nationals going shortstop once again, from Wake Forest, a college player. And I believe he is a very good contact hitter. So that should be helpful for the Nationals because they're just accumulating good players.
Yeah, and I doubt he plays shortstop at the next level just because of C.J. Abrams and what he's going to be there. But again, we've had this conversation 100 times. Taking a shortstop doesn't mean you don't get a second baseman. You don't get a third baseman. No, that's still on the table.
Yes, and now high school. Once again, this is the pick I got right with the Tigers going high school. Once again, Bryce Rayner. I know you had him going higher.
Yes, I did. I had Bryce Rayner at 5. So, yeah, I did not think he was going to fall this far. I thought he has a lot of potential, and I think he's actually better than Connor Griffin. So when I saw that he was still on the table by 9, I was like, wow, I'm going to get it wrong. And then somehow they still went Connor Griffin over Bryce Rayner. So it worked out. But a lot of those guys that go early, I think we know this from experience. A lot of the guys that go early from high school are one of 3 positions. They're either pitchers, shortstops, or catchers. Those are the only 3 I really see that will go really early in the first round out of high school. I sometimes center fielders, I'll give you that as well, but it's really just shortstops and pitchers, and then sometimes catchers and sometimes center fielders, but never like a first baseman. Like those are not usually the guys you'll see because they need to accumulate those stats also in college because they can only really play that one position. With, again, center fielders, shortstops, they have a lot of room to grow in one way or the other if you need them to.
Yes, and now the Red Sox get lucky with a guy like Braden Montgomery falling to them at 12.
Yeah, I had him going really high. I had him going all the way at 6. Another pick that I think they won. It's the first or second outfielder off the board because Condon, but I don't really think of him as an outfielder, even though he is. But yeah, and then the next pick, James Tibbs III, another outfielder. These two guys are probably quick to the MLB as well. I don't think they have the highest potentials, but they also have they have games that can transfer over really quickly. So I could see both of these guys getting into the league very quickly.
Yes, and that seems to be the trend. Is a scout was talking about it on the MLB Draft and on the MLB Network. They were talking about how a lot of scouts value college and they kind of view it. I think they talked about SEC being like low A, and we've seen that with SEC guys like Wyatt Langford and Paul Skeens. Both are in the league now, and I know pretty sure there's a third player in the draft. I don't remember which third player. But that's something, and I know it's ACC, but it could happen for a team. So now we also have Cam Smith from Florida State going to the Cubs, which is a pick you predicted.
Yeah, this is one that made sense. They desperately, Kevin, need a third baseman, and they got their need. So,
and now this shouldn't be surprising, but I thought Mariners were going to go hitter here, but they instead go pitcher, and that's the switch hitting pitcher, Kirango Sihente.
Yep. One thing, Kevin, you said that there was another player. There's actually been 2 other players that have played in the MLB during that first round. One of them was Nolan Chanol for the Angels. He went to FAU. I remember he played extremely well in the tournament that year. And then you have Hurston Waldrep for the Braves. He went to Florida. So that kind of continues your opinion about the SEC just being low A.
Yeah. And yeah, I should have guessed an Angels player.
Yeah, they've done the past couple years.
Yeah.
And, I think those are the only 4 that... Oh, nope. There's also been Jake Bloss, who was in the 3rd round for the Astros. He went to Georgetown University, but that's a pitcher. That's not a catcher. That's he's only pitched in 2 games. What'd you say?
Yeah. Well, FAU isn't in the SEC, but like just college players in general they're quicker. More.
100%. That's just because they're older too, though. I think the SEC one does make sense. I think a lot of the guys that do go up really quickly are SEC guys, and their impact in college is usually major, and those teams are also significantly better overall.
Yes, and the pitcher selected by the Mariners went to Mississippi State, which of course is an SEC school. Now we go to the Marlins, a team that I think should have valued college because of just what the big league team is doing right now, but they chose to go outfielder TJ Morlando, who I don't think was in either of our drafts, and he is a high school player.
Yeah, again, I think this is another player that they're expecting not to pay all that much. They'll pay him probably like a mid-level 2nd round pick instead of the 4.7 that is the max he could receive. These guys, Kevin, the problem with this is that their floor is extremely low. High school players are always like that, but especially if you reach on a high school, Kevin, it can be very, very bad. And I don't know. I haven't looked enough into this guy. I'm not going to make any opinion, say he's going to be bad or anything, but it's risky, extremely risky, and we'll have to see if it works out.
Yes, and there's a lot of potential in high school players, but the floor, as you mentioned, is lower versus the floor of a college player, and it could hit. I trust the Brewers who won high school more than the Marlins because the Marlins have struggled, especially on the position player side. But Brewers seem to be a great developmental team, so I don't.
Yeah, they have like
much,
2 or 3 amazing rookies this year alone. So
yeah,
I completely agree. And Braylon Payne's a good player. So I just need to look more into PJ Orlando. I've never heard of him before this draft, so I'll have to do some research.
And next, the Rays, another great developmental team, is Theo Gillen High School.
Yeah, this is definitely the team that whatever pick they make their players good. So I think this pick will work just because of who they are.
Yeah, and now we go Mets, who go Carson Benj, the outfielder from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, it checks out. They do need some outfielders. They've dealt with some injuries and had some guys missing, and they also, I feel like they want a guy quickly, so it checks out.
And next thing with the Blue Jays, they go Trey Yesovich, who I'm going at 10, falls to them. So I think the Blue Jays were pretty excited about getting a pitcher out of East Carolina.
Yeah, and East Carolina is a very good team. They're not in a major conference, but they always have a really good team. So I think Trey Yesovich is a great player, and I'm excited to see how he plays across the border.
And now the Twins went Killian Culpepper, the shortstop from Kansas State. He has some experience from third. He moved from third to shortstop at Kansas State, but he seems to be a good hitter. And that's, if you're going to go position player, you want to get hitting, but also defensively. So I think if the goal of the draft is just get a player that can make it to the big leagues and contribute.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree.
And I know that sounds very simplistic, but that's kind of the way it is in the MLB draft, especially because you can just miss on so many picks, and that can really hurt your system.
Yeah.
Now we go to the Orioles, who are excellent, have an amazing system. Add Vance Honeycutt, an outfielder from North Carolina.
Yeah, this is a guy I had going a little bit before. I believe I had him going to Tampa. It's a good pick. North Carolina is also usually a good team, so it checks out.
And now Dodgers go Kellen Lindsey. This is a pick I had, shortstop from high school. And I've heard people talk about his swing, and they said it looks like it needs some work, but the Dodgers, I think, are a great place for that. He is athletic because he did play quarterback in high school, so this could work out well for them.
Yeah, it definitely could, and I wouldn't be surprised if it works out perfectly here in a couple of years. Now,
Braves go high school, and we've talked about high school picks are risky, but I trust a team like the Braves, who have just a great developmental system, especially with arms. And I know high school arms are one of the riskiest players, just given the high school, and there's so much more time left, and they could hurt their arm. But I trust the Braves with Cam Committee.
Yeah, Cam Committee is something that I had going much higher. I had him going at 11. And him being a lefty pitcher, they've had a lot of lefty guys. Max Fried is the one that jumps off the page, so I like this pick.
Next, the Padres, this just seems to be their MO, is going with high profile, high potential, in that they select Cash Mayfield, the left-handed pitcher, Elk City High School, Oklahoma.
Yeah, there's been a lot of high school guys that are usually taken at the end of the first round, and that continues. I think probably 60% of the last 7 picks were all high school seniors, so the Padres continue that here.
And now I'll let you announce then what the Yankees did at 26.
We took Ben Hess. I'm shocked by this. Ben Hess had a 5.8 ERA in college. And while college ERA I do think is okay, a bit like being that high, what I'm worried about is a 4.6 walks per 9 innings. I'm worried about him walking. He also gives up, again, a lot of runs. I don't know. I don't know if this is the right pick. I'm going to have to look more into him. He strikes out a lot of guys. Strikes out like 14 per 9, and people see that and they're like, oh, wow, we're going to take him. But he doesn't have great control.
And that's something they're just going to have to work on, but maybe they liked his stuff and that may need something, but we'll just have to see what happens. Now the Phillies go high school outfielder, Northville, Michigan. A lot of high school players in the back end of this draft, which is a little bit surprising. And we're just going to have to see what works out because the Phillies need help in their system.
Yeah, the Phillies definitely do, and them getting an outfielder, another one that makes sense. Again, another high school guy, and we have at least one more left.
Yes, and before we get to that, the Astros selected a guy close to him was catcher from Sam Houston, Walker Janek.
Yeah, this is the last pick I got right, and it made sense for them getting a catcher after everything that happened with Martin Maldonado. I know he's on the team anymore; he's on the White Sox, but I do find it funny that they do go catcher here, and I did get it right.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Diamondbacks, you mentioned it earlier, they selected a high school player from Valley View, Arkansas, Slade Caldwell.
Yeah, Slade Caldwell's a guy I had going significantly higher, but he's the last high schooler off the board.
And with the last pick of the draft, this is the last pick I got right. It's Malcolm Moore to the Rangers. And you talked about the Astros needing help with catcher. The depth behind Jonah Heim is not really there. We're still waiting on Sam Huff because I know you were a huge fan of him, but they do need depth at catcher. So I think they needed to go catcher, and we'll just have to see if he stays at catcher because I know that's been a concern, but he is a good hitter.
Yeah. I don't have much more to speak on it. You got the pick right, and it's your favorite team, so we can end it off with that.
Yeah, and so this one's always the hardest because you just got to see the direction of the pick, and we'll see if it works out and if not. So let us know what you think, and thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.